Hello. Welcome back to Quiet Craft Club. Thanks for being here. I'm going to attempt, sorry, me getting my phone out of the case. I'm going to attempt to also go live on Instagram, so I'm going to work on getting that set up real quick. And today we are eco bricking, which I'm going to explain all about. But yeah, I want to see if I can go live on Instagram. Let me see. Live. Oh, okay. Wow. It's just as easy as that. Three, two, one. You're now live. Oh my god. Oh, I look shiny on Instagram. I kind of look shiny in real life too. Ugh. We're telling your followers that you started a live video. Okay, I gotta adjust my lighting slightly. Because that was making me look crazy. Okay. So, yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just interested to see what all I can do on here. No, okay. Cool. Okay, I'm live on Instagram too, so that way also if anybody wants to come join me from Instagram, I feel like it's like slightly more accessible than YouTube. Oh, hi. So yeah, I am doing Quiet Craft Club, which if you've never seen these videos or if you've never been in the live before, I try once a month on the first Thursday of the month. Oh wait, let me get my headphones plugged in because my sound is always better on my phone with my headphones plugged in. So hopefully that works. Let me know if it is not working. Um, but yeah, so I go live every first Thursday of the month and go over like a crafty thing. This time I thought I would go over eco bricking because when I talk to people about it, they seem really interested, but not a lot of people have heard about it. Um, and I will say, I've been working on this eco brick for like over a year. I have a video on my Patreon about eco bricking as well. And then it's also something that you can look up online. But essentially, what you do is you take plastics, soft plastics that you cannot typically recycle, and you cut them up really teeny tiny, as small as you can, and then you shove them into another plastic container. And then you can either use these yourself to build things, or you can send them to, there's a couple companies, most of them are overseas, they're not in the United States. And they use these to make things. Specifically, there's one big company that I think has like popularized the eco brick, and they take them and then they build like structures like houses and sheds and stuff out of them. So you can like you essentially encase this in concrete and it becomes like a brick. So a brick made out of plastics that would otherwise like go into our oceans and whatnot. I also have a little glass of wine. So yeah, I so the first step of eco bricking is collecting things that can go into the eco brick, which essentially means collecting trash. So one of the reasons why I also wanted to go ahead and do this is because I have had a pile of trash sitting here for also like a year since I started this eco brick, collected it all very, very quickly, was really good about doing it every single time I got a piece of trash. And then I fell off at one point and the trash just kept accumulating. I would not put it in the eco brick, and I still have a lot of that stuff today. So I've got a couple different pieces. I think I'm gonna do this one first because it also makes the least amount of like noise. I have these two. If you do anything that ever has food in it, one of the things that's kind of hard about it is that you also have to clean them really well. So these two I did like wash. Oh, and you can see that I cut off the top and the bottom and then I washed them on the inside. So that was done when I collected them. But some other things that I have, like I have this little trash or this little candy container, this little thing that ramen came in. I've got a like piece of packaging. Here's another pistachio one I might do. And then I have this really big one that's a toilet paper thing. Honestly, if I can get through these three things in an hour, which that's how long I go for, like 45 minutes to an hour, so I will be surprised. Because here's the thing that they don't tell you about eco bricking in most of the videos that you watch about it. That is really hard to do. It's actually really hard to it's not really hard. It's just one, tedious, and it is pretty hard on like your hands with the cutting up of stuff. And then also it is kind of a tedious process to get the stuff into here. So I'm gonna actually start by trying to put some of these things. This is kind of backwards because this is really the last step of the process. But I'm gonna shove some of these things in here. And this is another thing that's tough about this is like actually getting them into here, especially now that it's pretty full. Because you have to kind of shove them in. And then I have this little tool here. I have a muddler, a little wooden muddler. I don't know why I'm saying that so weird. Muddler. And you just push them down really, really hard. So yeah, it's crazy because at the bottom of this, like I can't even squeeze it anymore. And that's what you want. Like you want this to be really, really tightly packed. I just looked it up before I got onto the live, and this is a 32-ounce container. So to qualify for the eco bricks that like the companies typically take, or like how much that you're supposed to get it to, I guess, for structural integrity, this thing needs to be 350 grams once like weighed. So yeah, it's I also had a kitchen scale from when I used to make sourdough bread, but I can't find it. So I can't weigh mine because I was going to weigh it and see where it was at this point. It is surprisingly heavy. So I'm really interested to see what it's at this point. But yeah, so there's a couple different, parts of this process. This is kind of the last part, but I want to empty this out so I can fill her back up. And weirdly enough, this is one of my least favorite parts of this. So I'm just going to try to do it in little batches because these things are tiny and they don't want to go into here. You can't really use a funnel because to use a funnel, you'd have to be able to get the whatever tool you're using through the hole of the funnel. And that's really difficult to do. And I'm saying that because I have tried. I've also tried, so you need scissors. And I've tried to do this with a paper cutter, like actually, I think maybe on the last live that I did, that's what I was trying to do. And I could not get it to work. And I was really disappointed because I thought I had like cracked the code. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to work so much better. And it's going to make it so much easier. But yeah, in reality, this is not, it's not quite as easy as a process as they make it look on the interwebs. So it's one of those things where I'm like, it's a really cool idea, but it is kind of tough to do. I think it would also be helpful to have like multiple people doing the process. But yeah, so yeah, first step of the process is collecting your materials and making sure that they are very, very clean, because if there's any like food residue on them, it can turn to mold in here. And then the mold has to do with the reaction of like the mold using the oxygen or expelling oxygen or something. And it can actually make these things explode. So obviously, structural integrity wise, that's not a great thing to have happen. It just like builds pressure, and then pressure, it doesn't care. It doesn't care about concrete. But yeah, I had this vision, like when I first started, what I really wanted to do was make enough of these to be able to make a little raised garden bed. And that's still the goal. Like, I don't think that I'm going to be sending mine to the company, partially because also I feel like the amount of like fuel that it would take to get this over to it kind of negates the purpose a little bit. And also I think it would be really cool to have a little like, thing that I made into a structure. I think that would be very cool. But alas, also, that would take probably hundreds of these. And again, like I said, this one has taken me a full year, but that's like a full year of me doing it like, in tiny little bits and pieces when I really felt like I had the time, or when I sat down and like made the time. And I bet it's one of those things where like, if I sat and did like 10 minutes a day, I bet I could get farther than, doing it sporadically for an hour every couple of months. Because then I think you'd get good at like better at the process and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I can't seem to motivate myself to do it. Okay. That's the last little bit in there. This part of pushing it down is really, really, really important. And it's interesting. This bottle is also not really the best bottle to use because it does have all these little ridges. And that's not super helpful. So I don't even know really. I'm gonna be honest if this is like really the right thing to use. But I liked it because it was like thicker plastic on the outside. They said that that is better than like say like a water bottle that has kind of a thinner inside. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go around and push this down as much as I can. It never really looks like it goes down any, but I can tell that it is going down a little bit. And I will say also at the very beginning of this, not that I necessarily think it was a mistake, but I did not do the best job of like at the very beginning pushing stuff down into like all of these little tiny crevices down here. And that is definitely a spot where I can still see little, you can still see some empty space in there. So who knows? I might like get done with this and then weigh it and be like, oh, it's not even close. I have no idea how heavy 350 grams is, like how heavy it feels. But okay, so now that we've pressed that down a little bit, I'm gonna put this off to the side. And we have our little thing. I'm gonna put that off to the side now because I'm gonna cut it into like strips and then I'll take each of those strips and cut it into there, but I'm gonna do the strips first. So I'm going to, just get going. This is another thing that's a little bit harder harder on your body / like your hands than people really have ever said in any of the videos that I've seen of people doing this. Mostly like, you look up a TikTok of eco bricking and it obviously just tells you like the good things about it, which I think, the good things really do outweigh the bad things, but it just does really make it look so easy. And obviously at the beginning, like cutting stuff with scissors, not a huge deal, not super hard on your hands, but you sit and do this for 30 minutes, it's hard on your hands. And it takes longer to get this big piece of packaging into tinier pieces than you might think. So let's see how long this one takes. Okay, I started it probably at like 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So I've been going for like 45 seconds now. And I want to see how long this takes to get this little tiny one done. We shall see. Because like this part, the bigger strips, probably the easiest part of this, honestly. Because then cutting them, you'll see. Cutting them into the tinier little ones is what actually takes a second. Because you also can't do, you can only do so many at a time with however your scissors are. Like my scissors are also probably not that sharp. So yeah, this is the part that gets a little bit tougher. But yeah, this is going by pretty quick. Not too bad. Like I said, right when I first started, I was pretty good about only letting like a couple pieces of plastic like build up. And then I would just break it down. Like I had this sitting over by my like dishes, like clean dishes area. And when I would like wash one of these and then it would sit there. And then whenever I had the time, I would get through it pretty quick and like cut them up. I was also not cutting them up into probably small enough pieces. Like you can kind of see that at the bottom of this, they're in way bigger pieces. So yeah, I think that cutting them tinier is really helpful to getting them into all the little crevices, but it's tough to make them smaller, obviously. So yeah, if you're just joining, I am eco bricking, which is taking soft plastics and cutting them up really, really small and then shoving them into another plastic bottle. In theory, you can use these for like structures, or you can send them, you have to encase them in concrete, or you can send them off to a company that does it. That's like where I first heard about it, or like, I think I saw literally an advertisement from whatever nonprofit it was that does that. And that was like what got me like, oh, maybe I want to do that. But you have to wash the plastic things that you get if they had any sort of food in them. So it's like kind of the first step is collecting your materials and making sure that they're really, really clean. And then you cut them into strips, and then you turn those strips into little teeny tiny pieces. And then you put those little teeny tiny pieces into here, and then you take some sort of tool and you shove them all down. So yeah, okay. I'm getting a little bit. Sometimes I start to get like towards the end, especially, or after doing a few of them, a little bit more cavalier with my cuts. But really, it's just about getting them small enough that they can like fit into little tiny spaces. So I'm gonna do as much cutting as I can stand, and then I'm gonna put more into there. Okay, so 15 minutes. So that took me like 4 minutes to do. And that was definitely the smallest one that we have. So this one, I'm gonna try to do this one, and let's see if I can even, I'm gonna cut it in half first. All right. Cut that in half so it's a little bit easier to hold on to. And then see if this one works. It also kind of depends on the material. Like these ones I like because they're really thick. The three things that I picked to do for this little live are pretty thick. So it's easier to like, it's easier for the scissors to get through it, to like get a hold on it, because some of the thinner stuff, that's what gets really annoying. It just like smushes in the scissors. It doesn't actually like, the scissors don't, I don't really know what to say. Like the purchase that the scissors get on there, like cutting through it. Instead, sometimes with like the thinner plastics, they kind of just, it goes in between the blades and doesn't want to cut. And it's really annoying. Oh, also it's just like the sitting. The sitting sometimes makes me crazy. Or like standing, whatever you do. It's just like crafting, I feel like is harder on your body sometimes than people talk about a ton, like outside of the crafting community, because you have your hands that you need to like, actually I should probably stretch my hands, but just like using the scissors, doing the same motion over and over again is hard on your hands. And then however you like sit or stand or whatever can be hard on your back. I had a long day of doing things, doing physical labor. So my back's already kind of sore. Okay, and then the second half of this one, it's actually going pretty good. I say that now, and then I'm sure in 10 minutes I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this. Because that's what tends to happen with me with the eco bricking is like, I get inspired to do it, I get inspired to work on it, and then I do like 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, this is too much. Which, like I said, if I did just like 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes a couple times a week, I'm sure I could make more progress than I am right now, or than I am with the fact that I do this occasionally once every couple of months. And then I feel like I need to get through like a bunch because I have this pile of trash sitting in the corner that my boyfriend does not necessarily appreciate. Not like he's rude to me about it or anything, but it's just like, when is that, pile of trash gonna get taken care of? And I'm like, probably in the next year or so. So there's that. Okay. All right. That's the end of cutting that one into strips. Now I have like a bunch of strips. And I'll get I'm going to take a sip of wine. Yum. A little Sauv Blanc. Okay. So yeah, now we got to take them and cut them up really tiny. As tiny as we possibly can. And then they'll go into this guy and get shoved down to add some weight. This thing is like, I'm always surprised by how heavy it is. And this has, probably at this point, has like 30 pieces of trash that are around this size, which is kind of an interesting, like in general, I guess, as a way to condense trash in general too, is kind of nice. And if you're just joining, people use these, or there's a company specifically, there's a couple of nonprofits. When I looked it up, I realized there's actually a couple of them. But I was specifically influenced by one of the nonprofits that you can send these into them, and then they build structures for people and for communities, like with the eco bricks. So you encase it in concrete, and it's like, it's a way to utilize something that is, this kind of plastic is not recyclable. And it's the kind of thing that really just like ends up going into the water and then becoming microplastics that get into everything. So the idea, I think, is really to keep it out of the water. And also, like, whenever we talk about environmental things in general, we have to remember that with reduce, reuse, recycle, it's kind of important, or it's like the idea is to do those things in that order. So reduce as much as you can, reuse as much as you can, recycle as much as you can, but also kind of as a last resort, because recycling does also, like, the process of recycling does take energy and other things. So that's the other thing, is like, reducing these sort of plastics is really a more impactful, is like the most impactful thing that you can do. Reducing the amount that you use them, and then thus hopefully influencing companies to use less of them. But also, it's like that thing of like, individuals don't, if every single individual on the entire planet did all of these things, reduce, reused, recycled as much as possible, uh, there would still be like 98% of the pollution that gets put into the world, because most of the pollution that happens in the world is from big companies. So it's one of those things where there really does need to be like some top down approaches to it, in my personal opinion. Like, if we're going to really combat climate change and combat environmental changes that are directly caused by us, we got to really reduce, like, from the top. But yeah, plastics, I mean, more and more people are obviously learning about the harms of plastics. And this is just a way to kind of say, like, sometimes it's inevitable to use plastic. Also, I am not at all like an expert on not using plastic, or even really being like maybe I'm above the average human being when it comes to my lack of plastic. But like, so much food comes in plastic, so much packaging is just unavoidable. Or like, if you want to avoid it, you have to really really go out of your way, and I don't necessarily have the capacity or the time or the energy or any of that stuff to do that. So we do what we can. And I'm not meaning to be like pessimistic about it. I just trying to be realistic. And also, like, yeah, to say that this is cool and it is helpful and the idea of it is helpful, but also like raising awareness about just trying to not use plastic is really also a helpful thing, which I think that's probably the main mission of this nonprofit, is like, okay, well, it exists, so let's do something with it, but also let's try to get people to not use these plastics as much as possible. The reality is, even if plastic was banned tomorrow, we would still have a lot of it to deal with. So it is also still good to, figure out ways to reuse it or recycle it or whatever. This is not recycling. I guess this would be considered reusing it. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. If people don't use as many things packaged in plastic, that should hopefully send a message to companies, or, like lobbying or whatever. That is definitely impactful. And that's what I was kind of trying to say, is like, I think the thing about this is, like, it's a good thing to do. It's a cool thing to do, but also it's something to kind of remind you, like, how much, I don't know who that is, but that sounds awesome. I'm glad that there's people out there doing that. And I will say, like, that is one of the big missions of Give It, Get It Too, which is to like reduce, reuse, recycle. And part of having like the buy donation thrift shop and trying to get used items from people to people, a big part of that is trying to combat not only consumerism and like hyper consumerism, but also like trying to do everything that we can for the environment. If people got more used to using things, like reusing things, then that would also reduce their consumption and reduce the new things that they're buying. And then, that in theory trickles up to what the companies are producing. But yeah, I will look that person up. Oh, for the YouTube on Instagram, got a comment about just like agreeing with the fact that the big companies produce products and then people buy. So if people can try to get regulations passed, that's what's really, really helpful. And also, this person specifically gave a name, Catherine Hayhoe, is that how you say her name? That has a really big view of trying to combat climate change. I don't know who that is. I'm not super, super plugged in general, because I have a lot of things happening in my own life and things that I'm doing. But That sounds cool. I will definitely look her up because I'm also, down to support people who are fighting the good fight. Okay, so we're on to our third piece of plastic that I want to cut up. I'm feeling like very like I've gotten through a lot, but I always forget. I do the cutting part and I feel like so like inspired, empowered, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so much, I'm doing whatever. And then the getting it from here into this thing is like the hardest. So I'm gonna do this last one, and then I'll probably spend the next, half hour that I have just stuffing those into there. But that's also why I have this little thing because I do like to kind of do it in steps, and if I can just sit and like cut some of it up, and also cutting it up and putting it into here obviously gets it out of my corner of doom. I also did stop like collecting the plastic because I made a promise to my partner that I would not collect anymore until I got through that. So I definitely also have been throwing away plastic, unfortunately, because I do not have the capacity to do this all into eco bricks, and it's got to go somewhere. Oh, okay, she's a climate scientist and educator. Love it. I will definitely look her up. And if she has educational tools that I can follow or see like what I can do on an individual level, I will be happy to do as much as I can. As much as I can. Okay. Yeah, see, I don't know if you guys can tell or if you can hear it at all, but like the little bit of snagging, this one is slightly thinner than those last ones were. And so it's just like the snagging on the scissors. Okay, this person said she really promotes talking to people like family and friends about climate change. Educating people is the way to make change. You are so right. That is one of the things that we also try to do with Give It Get It, like word of mouth or like education in general is something that we're going to try to really focus on in 2024 because I do think that change like definitely starts at home, and if you're willing to like kind of put yourself out there and talk to people and try to get like it's so much easier for people to be influenced by people that they care about in their life than it is for them to be influenced by bigger things. I mean, sometimes people obviously have their idols and have their people that they like, live and die for that are celebrities. But I think real like incremental change does often happen on the ground. So that's cool. I'm glad, I mean, I know there's tons of people doing this same sort of stuff and fighting this fight. And I'm really excited. I am really excited to jump into more of that in 2024. Like I said, I'm kind of trying to get through the holiday season right now. And then I'm going to work on trying to set up some more education, maybe some classes, maybe some fun stuff. Like this seems like a thing that could also be really fun or like cool to do with a group of being like, okay, once a month, or even like this quiet craft club thing. That's also something that I am trying to promote in general is like, if you can devote an hour a month to sitting down and doing a craft or something that reuses something or recycles something, then that's time put towards the mission. So, but yeah, this seems like something that could be really helpful to have like a big group where maybe you could like shift through the positions of like who's doing what, or like if certain people are like, oh yeah, I want to cut everything up, and some people are like, okay, I want to shove the stuff into the bottle or whatever. It feels like it could be like the labor of it could be a lot easier to do. And definitely you would like come out with more product in the end, or not product, but like more change in the end, more changing the big pieces of plastic to the small pieces of plastic. Plastic is a crazy thing. I don't really understand it. Like, I don't really understand how plastic is just like man-made and like what that really means. I should probably educate myself more on it. But it's just wild. And it's wild how since the invention of these types of plastics, like, I don't know, it's just like the idea of progress is such a double-edged sword in terms of like, it's good to move forward on things a lot of times. It's good to like learn new things, to have new tools to use like as humans. But it's wild how we often don't understand the consequences of these things until so much later. And at this point, like plastics and single-use plastics are so much a part of culture and so much a part of just consumption in general, especially in the United States. I mean, I can't speak for any other country. I know that there's other countries who have done a better job of, uh, banning plastics, banning certain kinds of plastics, that sort of thing. The United States is not high on that list. I know that for sure. So I don't know. It's just wild, and it's wild how like I'm sure people were so excited about like the invention of plastic and how much like convenience it brings to the world. But the reality is like life doesn't always need to be about convenience, and that's something that I think also in America we have a really hard time wrapping our heads around. Is like not everything needs to be about convenience and efficiency. Like it just doesn't. Um, I prefer to like, set up my own life to be more about like joy and also service, like, trying to make my own life and other people's joyful and also trying to serve the world and serve people as much as I possibly can. Those are kind of the values that I choose to think are the most important and like build my life around. And to each their own. Like there is definitely a time and a place for efficiency and productivity and all of those things, but there's not a ton of that in my world. I'm gonna be honest, and I've tried really, really hard to set my life up that way, and I'm very lucky and I'm very privileged that I have the ability to do that. And it definitely comes, with very intentional ways of decisions that I've made, and also very intentionally not doing certain things and not sort of divesting from certain things that I was at one point very invested in. Like in general, I try really hard to be like like to consume less than I used to, and also than I once thought was like important to do. And I personally think that just like the hyper consumption that we have in this country, and like the idea of like hyper consumption being the goal of people is just a really, I just think that that's one of the hard things about making any sort of real change when it comes to the environment. Is like if it's the ideal world to want to be able to consume all these different things, to want to be able to buy all these different things and have access to all of these different things all the time at the touch of a button, there's consequences to that. And there's convenient things about that. And then there's long term effects of things like that. So, it's just all about weighing the pros and cons of things. Okay, sit break. Yeah, okay. So this commenter says, I'm nervous about the bag ban in Lawrence. I think it's going to have a big impact on low income people. That's another thing that's so hard about decisions being made about things with the environment, is that often it's like people want to make progress moving forward, but they don't always think about who it's going to be in. You're right. They said capitalism, not a great economic system, it turns out. Not if you want the world to not, be negatively impacted. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of people who could sit and say that there's benefits to capitalism. I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to try any of that. Um, I think capitalism hurts people. I think it hurts the environment. I think it does not care about capitalism does not care about you. That is definitely the case. So, yeah, but it is like the bag ban because also so I work with a lot of really low income people and a lot of unhoused people. And I think sometimes what we forget is also just like what certain things turn into resource wise for other people. And when it comes to like the bag ban, so the idea would be like, okay, so if you go to the grocery store, you either have to pay for plastic bags or you have to bring your own bag. And it definitely is going to hurt people who don't either one have the money to either buy reusable bags or also, here's the thing when it comes to reusable bags and plastic bags. I do very much think plastic bags are, bad news, but reusable bags, first of all, are often made out of plastic. Second of all, often the stuff that you have to do to create a reusable plastic bag is going to be more detrimental to the environment than the creation of like disposable plastic bags. Disposable. I'm all for paper bags. I'm going to be honest. That's my personal opinion. Though, again, paper bags, cutting down trees, all that sort of stuff. I am working right now on using t-shirt yarn to make reusable bags. Not a solution again that's like super, super accessible or anything like that, but these are just the things that are tough. Cause also it's like in reality, wouldn't it be nice if grocery stores were so readily available and people had the ability to get to them and the ability to use them in a way where we didn't necessarily need to use 1,000 plastic bags every time. Like if people could go to the store more often, and get fewer items, and also in general, if there was just fewer items being bought, like if people were, growing a lot more of their own food, that sort of thing. Like it's all a whole system that's like tied together. So it's so hard when somebody says like plastic bags are bad, so let's ban plastic bags, and then there's ripples through that are not always also doing exactly what you said that you wanted to do in the beginning. Um, yeah, I know, paper. It's like that's the thing. It's like paper bags are, they're compostable, they're whatever, but again, they're trees, they're cutting down things, they're moving, anything that you have to move from one space to another that's produced in another space and then moved to another space. That's all energy and fuel and carbon and all those things. So again, just like such a yeah. So that's what sewing unwanted t-shirts into bags is also an easy way to make reusable bags. That's true. T-shirts are sometimes hard to sew. I've found so like this is like one of the things that I'm really like working on. Figuring out like behind the scenes, trying to do a bunch of like research and development to figure out what is something that actually works and like becomes an item that you actually want to use and also is as accessible as possible. T-shirts are interesting because you have to use some very specific types of stitches or you have to line them with another type of material because t-shirts are really stretchy. They're typically made with plastic or with like polyester. Well, polyester is plastic. Spandex, I think, is also plastic. And those things, when you sew them together, once you put pressure on it, they will like separate really easily. So like 100% cotton t-shirts are easier to make into that sort of thing than like blended t-shirts. And really there's a lot of blends in t-shirts these days. So that's something I'm working on trying to figure out. You can do you can do like a bunch of lines of like single stitch or like straight stitch. I'm also not an expert when it comes to sewing. You can do more like reinforcement and obviously it'll last longer than just like one single line. There's also certain stitches that you can do, like I'm doing this little zigzag stitch, if you can't tell, that will also help with that sort of stretching. There's also certain like folding techniques. So yeah, it's all just like a process of learning and trying to figure out what works the best. Also, plastic bags. I do also make them into plastic yarn, and then you make that plastic yarn into stuff. And plastic yarn can be made into stuff that's really helpful for like unhoused people specifically because it is like waterproof because it's plastic. So you can make things like bed mats, like sleeping mats, that sort of stuff that can be like the first layer on the ground or like in a car that adds some cushion while also being water resistant. So yeah, working on all those things, doing my best. This is what I really like zigzag stitch. That is the thing to use with the t-shirts. Can every sewing machine do that? I have used a couple of different types of machines and they've all had lots of different stitches that are possible. But I'm just again not an expert. So yes, okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're at about 40 minutes, which is great. So I think I'll finish out what's in here and then I will finish up for the evening because I try to go for about 45 minutes to an hour. Again, we're eco bricking, taking soft plastics and trying to do something with them that is not just throwing them away so that they end up in landfills and usually into the ocean or into another country that then has to deal with the consequences of big, huge piles of trash that will not decompose for billions of years, if like at all. And then when it does, yeah, it's so interesting. I as an anthropology person, anthropology major, like when you think about looking at past civilizations and thinking about like the debris that they leave behind and the trash that they leave behind, I'm just so interested in how plastic and plastic waste is going to affect our future. And like thinking about like in 1,000 years, like when humans are looking back on this time, like what will they see? What will they see happening? Or what will they see like in the trash that we've left behind? And what will that tell them about us? And how will that affect people? Like they say that people are like born now with plastic like in their body because it's in every like microplastics in everything. And again, every generation kind of has their thing of like, what toxic thing was put into your body from birth. I'm trying to think what millennials are because there was like the lead paint. I think millennials and Gen Z kind of get the microplastics. There was lead paint, there was asbestos, aerosols are one, I feel like. And then, yeah, the microplastics that are taking over the world. So yeah, it like probably looks like there's been no change from the beginning of this, which is actually what's wild. So from the beginning of this, which obviously if we're on a live now, you can't see the beginning, but if you are somebody watching this later on YouTube, you could go back and look, but like it looks no different. And we have put 4 big pieces of trash into this. So there is that too of just like the condensing of the big pieces of waste into at least a smaller amount. And like I said, my goal eventually, I think it would be cool to have enough of these to build a raised garden bed because then you encase them in concrete and then you can fill that with whatever. I think you could probably also do stuff that's not concrete. Like you might be able to do it with like mud too, like a specific type of like mud or clay or whatever. And obviously when I get to that point, I will figure out what works the best. Because concrete is also something that I don't have any experience with. Okay, and actually, I'm getting to the end of this. I think I've got like 20 minutes left. I acted like that was going to take me so long, and then it did not take me as long as I thought it was going to. I think I might start on another little piece so I can start the process from the beginning again. I got little tiny pieces left in here. Okay, shove this all down. Ugh. This part makes me sweat. Like genuinely using my muscles. I try to put like as much body weight on as I can. I don't know if you guys can see if the camera's shaking. I made the mistake at the beginning of this. I think I said this earlier in the video, but I wasn't as good about like pushing it down really, really hard. And I feel like at the bottom of this, there are still like spots because I didn't push it all the way into there. So like, okay, so like I'm squeezing as hard as I can. I'm squeezing as hard as I can and it's not doing anything. Squeezing up here and you can see how it like goes in. Sorry if that sound is annoying. Do it for the YouTube, but yeah, I can push this in. I can't push this in, even if I wanted to. So that means that I am doing the thing. Okay. And it feels like you're making no progress. That's another thing. Well, it is nice to see, the big pieces of trash turn into something that is like very, very manageable. But this part of it, I feel like it's just churning butter over here. Uh-oh, knocked over my plant. I have some somewhat precariously like plants that are on some things that are just like this, and then they're on here. So the table shaking is making them fall. Okay. I feel like I've shoved that down enough. So maybe I'll just use this last like 10 minutes or so to just cut up as much plastic as I can over here because also if I cut it up and put it into this, at least it's not in the corner of doom anymore. You can also put receipts into these. Receipts are like weirdly toxic. That's another thing that I've learned in this process that's kind of bizarre is like receipt paper is not good for human skin or like the world in general. So yeah, I think there are a few receipts in here. That's another thing that maybe I could do a better job of saving because I feel like they also cut up pretty easy because they're kind of like paper. Wine break. Okay. So this is another. So like those other ones that I did were a lot thicker plastic, so it's just easier to like cut them into strips that are manageable. But also the softer plastic does, you don't have to cut it quite as small. Okay, yeah, see, this is the thing. It's like you have to make all these little tiny cuts because this plastic wants to snag on everything. But again, you don't have to cut it quite as small. The softer the plastic, you know, the bigger the piece that can be smushed. Oh, okay. I don't know if you guys can tell how much more difficult this is than the other stuff that I was just doing, but it is. Take my word for it. It is. And this is the kind of thing, like this one didn't touch food, so, you know, I didn't have to like give it a wash versus the other ones touched food. So I did have to wash those. Okay, that's just like how to hold it. These are a lot funkier of strips, but the end result will be pretty much the same. It'll all just get shoved into the bottle. Okay. Yeah, see, at this point, this is where I start to feel a little aggravated. Maybe I should have started with the harder ones first. I didn't think I was going to get through. I thought that those, was it 3 or 4? I can't remember. But I thought that little pile I had before was going to take me the whole hour, which it almost did. It took me about 40 minutes. And that was like start to finish. Well, I did besides the cleaning. If I'd added the cleaning in, it probably would have been exactly an hour to do that much. So that's why you can see that like it's like that amount of bags that I got is like you really get that amount of bags of food or whatever in one Costco trip. All those things actually that were there that I did before were from Costco. So, you know, like that's one Costco trip worth of stuff. Maybe you're not getting rid of all of them like they're not all becoming empty at the same amount of time. But it's like, okay, if I can go and spend less than an hour at Costco to get these things, but then it takes me an hour to then turn them into something else. It's just like, that's the thing. It's so easy. It's so convenient. And this is not necessarily convenient. Okay. Yeah, this stuff is a lot tougher to do this part of it. I kind of have come up with some like methodology. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do more of these. I'm shove more in here, and then I'll show you what I do to make this a little bit of an easier process. You got to hold it really close and then just snap off little bits, little teeny tiny bits. Your hand. Sometimes I worry that my sweaty hand on here, I'm like, I hope that's not putting anything on these that's gonna explode in the bottle. Yeah. See, it was smart of me to choose the things that were easier so that I didn't just sit and spend the entire time complaining. Because I am, see, this is what I'm talking about with this plastic of like, sometimes it just doesn't cut. It just goes in your scissors. These are my kitchen scissors. I have tried other scissors. I have tried craft scissors. I have tried I have some scrapbooking scissors that are really sharp, but they're like thinner, what are these called? I don't know. And it just doesn't work as well, honestly. Make sure you actually get it into the thing. Right. We're working. Things are going. Feeling good, feeling great, helping the world. That's like when I start to get frustrated, I'm just like trying to tell myself, like, sometimes, again, like just what I said earlier, sometimes things are not convenient and easy and efficient, and that's okay. Not everything has to be. Not everything should be. And I feel like that's a lesson that I have learned since starting Give It, Get It, that I feel like is one of the most important lessons I've learned in my entire life. That I feel like we're taught from a very young age that we should focus really, really hardcore on efficiency and ease and all these things. And there are so many things that is, I want people to live a good life. I want people to live a good, joyful life. But those things don't, like, capitalism has made us think that efficiency and like getting so many things done in efficiency and productivity will lead to happiness. And efficiency and productivity can make you feel good about certain things, but they don't inherently lead to happiness. They just lead to production of more things. And in a capitalism world, production of more things means more things to sell, more things to make money off of. And in capitalism, that's what matters, is making money and having a surplus. And like, I don't know. I just don't, those aren't ideals that I care that much about, honestly. All right, we're getting to the end of this one. And I think that'll be perfect. I'll finish this one off. I'll shove it in there as much as I can. And then our hour will be done. I'm always surprised by how fast the hour goes by when I do this little Quiet Craft Club business. And I would really love to get to the point of, have enough people excited for this that we can get people all doing this sort of thing at the same time. Not always eco-bricking. I don't always do eco-bricking. You can always go and look at my YouTube page and see what I've done in the past for Quiet Craft Club. My YouTube page is under the name Megan Talks, MEGANTALKS. Well, and obviously I'm on Instagram Live and I'm on YouTube Live. So obviously if you're on the YouTube, you're like, yeah, we know because we're literally here. But yeah, so YouTube, all my past lives of Quiet Craft Club do exist there. So you can go and look and see what we've done before. I do a lot of stuff with t-shirt yarn. That's kind of my bread and butter. And that's what I know the most about and what I get the most joy from doing stuff with, because I make t-shirt yarn and then I make that t-shirt yarn into other things, which is really fun and just lets me do, crochet and weaving and macrame. I use all of those skills that I have with t-shirt yarn, and then I can make new and beautiful things. And I actually have a video detailing all the things that I've made with the t-shirt yarn. So that's on my YouTube if you would like to check that out, or that's a video on the YouTube if you're already on my YouTube that you can go check out if you'd like. And I think that's like really fun to just see like what the actual end products can be, because it can be daunting to get started. But what I like about a lot of these trash to treasure things is the fact that it's literally trash. Like, it's most likely something that you have around your house. You most likely have all of the tools to be able to do all of the things that I do during Quiet Craft Club, just like in your house for free. So that's another thing, is like, I like the accessibility, low barrier to entry to get started on these sort of things. I think that is really, really important as well. So yeah, just shoving the last little bit of this into here. I feel like this is only going to get harder and harder to do as this thing gets fuller and fuller. And this is low-key my least favorite part. I need something next bottle. The next bottle that I choose, I feel like I need to go with something with a wider mouth at the top, because this one makes me a little crazy. Okay. We're getting close. We're getting close. Get in there. Go on, get. Okay. Finish out this last little bit. Thank you so much, everybody that is either watching this video later or watched live. or is here live right now. I really, really appreciate it. I do Quiet Craft Club every first Thursday of the month. And if I can get more and more people excited for it and more people ready to do the things, I think that will only continue to be more impactful, which is cool. And also, if I see that people have interest in stuff, I will make full YouTube videos about things. Eco bricking, there's so many videos about, so like that's not necessarily one that I would do my own video about probably. But I do have a video about making t-shirt yarn in general, like the entire process start to finish of like picking what t-shirts work the best. And just going through all the steps from a t-shirt to a ball of yarn. All right, we're done with that one. I'm just gonna shove it down a little bit. These last like 30 seconds or so. And then I'm gonna log out unless anybody has any questions, let me know. But also, if you want to see what I did at the beginning of the video, feel free to, again, go check it out on YouTube. Or if you're on YouTube, you can start from the beginning and see all my episodes of the Quiet Craft Club that I've done so far. I've done a few cool things. Okay, I'm going to refill this bottle, and I'm going to sign off. Thank you again for being here. Go, follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram at Give It Get It if you're interested. If you're on Instagram, obviously you're already there. So cool. It was so fun to do this, and I will catch you next time. That'll be in January in the new year, which is like astonishing and horrifying to a degree. So I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.